everybody, Master T here checking in. Thank you for joining me here at Awaken Within on my YouTube channel with Master Ernie T. I want to jump right into it today. A couple of disclaimers here and some quick information about what this is going to be about. First of all, if you didn't get a chance, check out the last two reels. That's going to help you out. Those are those real short reels. They're about 3 minutes long, right? So those are the ones that I kind of use to kind of get some quick information about and then lead you into the real video because it gives me more time on the videos, right? So this is going to be, a series of videos that are going to be on the topic of addiction and substance use disorder, alcoholism, drug addiction, mental health, and of course, above all, healing and recovery. Okay, because that's what we're going to be focusing on, right? I'm going to go over some things that will go into or about the disease of substance use disorder, but I'm also going to be talking about how things worked for me, how it worked for me, and how I remained in recovery for over 28 years. Okay, so this is not about boasting about me, about thinking I'm the greatest thing on earth. It has nothing to do with that. This is about really helping you through my learned experience, from my lived experience, right? And this is what worked for me. I'm also going to be pulling from different pathways that are really not mainstream yet. As far as helping people get into recovery, and that is I'm going to be pulling from the metaphysical and the spiritual. I am non-clinical, okay? So there will be a non-clinical approach here, although it's good. I'm also going to be talking about the 12-step program, even though I'm non-traditional when it comes to that. Have I used the 12-step programs in AA? Absolutely. I will talk about it, and I'll let you know where it fits in on all this, because it does. It's another great pathway. On all of that, of course, I'm going to be talking about recovery coaching and certified peer recovery specialists, the support specialists that are out there for you. And I've already put some of that out there. So, but I am going to be pulling it from different places. But the big thing that I want to kind of hit right now is that, remember this, that substance use disorder is usually a symptom of much more deeper things, okay? And we have an awful lot of treatments that are out there that continue to treat the alcoholism instead of the root problem. Remember, alcohol is a symptom. Alcoholism and drug addiction is usually a symptom for deeper things. I'm going to keep on saying that, right? So we need to get a lot deeper. In some of my pathways that I have now used in my own professional business has been helping people, right? Even though they may seem a little whacked out there sometimes or woo-woo, all right? So stay with me, hang in there. So real quick on this idea of what happens, where did this come from? How did this happen to me? Those are the questions that I used to ask in my early days. It's not a question that you really need to be worrying about right now if you are now thinking about getting into recovery and starting your healing process. It really doesn't matter right now. So try to let that go if you can, because that drove me insane at one time, because I was a martial artist, master teacher, all of that, bodybuilder, fitness, nutrition, and personal development, and it still got me, right? So anyways, I will tell you a quick story. I was in an AA meeting once, and I really, really believe that there were people set in those, in those meetings for a reason. At the time that I went, there were a lot of old timers there that are not around anymore. They were like Yodas. They were like masters themselves. They have incredible knowledge, and they're still out there if that works for you, for sure. A lot of experience, but I remember being in a meeting and I was complaining because I did a lot of that in my first year of meetings, and I was complaining that I can't believe this happened to me. I have discipline, I have self-control. Why did this happen to me? It shouldn't have happened to me. And one older woman, she probably in her late 70s, she had just kind of stopped the meeting. She just looked at me and she says, of all the discipline and self-control you have, would that help you if you had diabetes? She said, listen, son, I just want to let you know that all the discipline and self-control is not going to help you when it comes to a disease called alcoholism, right? It's not going to, right? You're going to need a lot more than that. You're going to need a lot more than willpower. Because I had one of my master teachers, okay, that was teaching me at the time, said I had no willpower, no discipline. So that kind of disappointed me there. That didn't help me. So just a real quick story there, and I will use a lot of stories, but I'm going to stop my story right now, okay? And that is what did happen to me, right? Well, these are just some of the things that came around as I got more into my recovery. But, you know, we all know that I speak an awful lot about the subconscious mind, the mind of the program, right? Things that have been put in there through experiences, negative experiences, experiences that we don't even know we experienced, but we've heard them as we were growing up. And I really look at this as the perfect storm for being addicted to alcohol, right? So first of all, my early days, my younger days when I was a child, all right, those are the days that you are really at a high level of vibration to be pulling in all kind of information. You are at a different frequency, a frequency almost very close to the frequency of hypnotism. It is at a theta level between, I think it is 5 years old to about 12, right? And it's easy to download things in the subconscious mind, in the program mind, all right? And so just think about this. I was a young boy, and my father was struggling with alcohol. He would come home, the arguments would happen on a regular basis. My father was a great guy, by the way. He was just struggling with a thing called alcoholism. My mother was a fantastic lady, but she didn't understand it. So, you know, he came home after being at some of the bars in the day, men's bars, as you remember for some, and the arguments would stop, you know, and here's little Ernie laying in the bed and supposed to be getting sleep so he can get up and go to school and get good grades. Well, that wasn't really happening. I didn't understand it. I didn't feel like I fit in anyways. I didn't like to play sports, team sports anyways. So, you know, all of that. You know, growing up in Barrington, it just didn't feel like I fit in. And some of that feeling like I didn't fit in, I think, was really from the night before. So again, no pointing fingers, no, you know, blaming anybody. It's just the way it was, right? So it's kind of the perfect storms, right? So let's put in 10%, and we'll talk about this some other time, but 10% genetics. We'll talk about that, 10%. So a lot of times people use that as an excuse. Well, it's genetic and it's hereditary, and that's why I became an, okay. All right, so we're not our past and we're not our genes, right? We're not our disease, right? We're not our disorder or illness, right? So genetics, again, no matter what it is, only plays about 10%, okay, of the disorder. So keep that in mind, okay? And I really, really believe that. I really do, right? But let's throw the 10% in there. So genetics, okay, the arguments at nighttime, feeling less than going to school, all right? Not feeling like I'm fitting in, all right, in a whole sport thing because you had to play sports in those days, okay? All right, let's put another part into this, right? My dad loved to go to the men's bars of the day. There were men's bars. There was no woman allowed. And I went to almost every one of them. So I was exposed. I was exposed in an environment. We talk about this all the time, at a very young age, right? At that theta level, spinning around on a bar stool, at different bars all over the place, between Barrington, Warren, and Bristol. I was there with my dad. I loved being with those guys, especially the Italians, right? I learned how to play pool. I learned how to roll dice. I learned how to swear in Italian. I picked up a lot of bad habits also, right? But that's what happens when you sit there, okay, and listening to these people, whether you think you're listening or not, okay? And this stuff happens, right? It really, really does. And, you know, by the time I was 18, I couldn't wait to go into those places, for sure, right? So it was my environment as well, right? So after all of that and hearing these things and listening to my parents arguing, you know, I was set up. I was almost set up for failure. And this is why you have to understand, to this day now, there's a law. You can't bring kids to a bar, okay? Even if it's a restaurant, the children cannot sit at a bar, okay? Because it's not a good environment, right? you pick up things like everybody's having a good time, everybody's laughing and enjoying themselves, right? Wow, they're all laughing and enjoying themselves, and they're drinking, and the glamour of it all, right? Not a good place for a child, not a good place for a child at all. So think about that. So we walk around with an emotional wound. And what happens when you have an emotional wound, all right? And you think about your own wounds, okay? But we walk around with emotional wounds, okay? Different levels of trauma, different negative experiences. And what happens when you have a wound, or just a plain old wound on your arm? Now, if it is open, okay, it's acceptable to infection. So when you walk around with an emotional wound, okay, and you are now aligned with alcohol, okay, this spirit of alcohol, and we'll get into the spirit of alcohol some other time, will be easily brought into that wound, okay? And then we'll start using that alcohol to feel better, to get some relief, to self-medicate ourselves, right? To feel better, right? So there's the catch, right? And we don't even know it, okay? And I'm gonna end it with this. Picture this now. I went through all that stuff, right? Be exposed to all of that stuff. And then around 14 years old, kids do what they kids do. And that is that we end up getting a couple of six packs going to the back of the YMCA in Barrington and Brickyard Pond. And we start, drinking and having a couple of beers, and 4 or 5 of us, all my friends from the neighborhood, right? And then the switch was pulled, boom, because the wound was open. Okay, and then alcohol just opened that gate even more, because I already had that wound. I already had that opened. Okay, and that gateway is open to that alcohol. It changes things immediately, whether we know it or not. Now, picture this, there's 4 or 5 of us out there, all right? 2 out of the 5 didn't do well with alcohol down the line, right? The rest of the people, they just went along with their own business, and they drank and had a great time, and they partied, and after that, when it came to the end of high school, they put the drink down. They never really drank that much anymore. But me and a few others, boy, I don't care how much I got sick. I don't care how much I threw up. I enjoyed it. I couldn't wait for the next Friday. Matter of fact, we should do it Saturday and Sunday as well. All right, because the switch was pulled, right? The gate was open, right? Now it's filling that wound, that feeling of not fitting in and all of that, right? And so it affected everybody differently. And that was the beginning of the end, okay, for me. When it came to alcohol, after that, it was 20-something years before I put that drink down. Okay, so lesson learned here. It's very important, okay? You have to pay attention, okay, to the root causes here down the line. When you look at someone that is struggling out there, or look at yourself that you're struggling, you have to look that there is definitely a root cause there. Okay, when you see someone struggling and you don't struggle at all, and you stop pointing the finger at people, okay, and think about it before you point that finger, because that person is hurting deep down, and he probably or she doesn't even know it. Okay, so it's important. Recommendations here. Okay, if you're looking for help, please contact me. Contact your recovery centers again. Okay, East Bay Recovery Center, Warren. They have recovery coaches there for you. Also, you have Anchor Recovery, all right? And they are, I think, in Cranston. There is support out there. So we're going to get you much, much more help, and we're going to be talking more and more about how this thing, okay, comes around and gets stuck there, and you become addicted, all right? Because that's what happens. We get stuck in that, and we use it for a coping skill. That's what we do. We're looking for that relief, like I said, right? So then, if you're looking to get into your healing and your recovery, and I hope you do, is that now you're going to, again, need something that's going to replace that coping skill. You're going to need good healing and recovery and support, all right? That's important, okay? So I know this was a long video, but I hope you got something out of it. All right, we are going to get into it much more deeper, and I'll try to keep it a lot shorter. So enjoy yourself. If you need any help, please 401-855-6255, because you can get well. Enjoy your day.